Hi guys, and welcome back to day 10 of Inktober. So today I wanted to draw a guy. It's pretty much as simple as that as far as what prompted me to work on this one. It's, as I mentioned, I actually have all of my Inktober sitting on my display rack that I use at my conventions because I never put it away and it was just sitting there. So I started stacking them up there, and it's actually really nice because I can see the range of things that I've done so far and look for similar threads that I can continue, or subject matter, or pretty much anything that I would like to revisit, different pieces that I can connect with certain references or ties. And today I realized that I've only drawn one man, and I would definitely like there to be more guys in my book as well. I love drawing them, but for some reason I always end up leaning towards women when I'm working on my pieces. So yeah, today I'm remedying that a little bit. I will be doing more of them in the future for Inktober, so that is going to be on my mind as I'm creating them. And in the future, I'd like to do more of multiple people within the same piece. I always love incorporating multiple characters and having them interact. It just adds a whole new depth to the piece. But anyways, today that was what sparked this basic concept. It is pretty basic, which I like. I like being able to have a variety of more complex pieces as well as ones that are a little bit more simple, like today. And I've been getting a lot of inspiration from surreal portraits lately, especially for when I have been thinking about drawing a portrait like this and I want to add something to make it interesting and unique. That's what I've been searching for as far as search terms lately to get ideas, because there's just so many interesting things that these photographers have been doing with the way that they're portraying the body and how they're editing photos. And it's just really interesting to be able to see from a completely different medium how people are dealing with the same issues that I would like to work on. So there are just so many that have really interesting ways that they combine different elements. So I'm trying to take a page out of that book and study those and see how I can incorporate that kind of a concept into my pieces. And I think that that's really helped. It's definitely helped me gain a better idea of how to be more interesting with my compositions, as well as add more interesting elements to these simple portraits like this one. And it really, in my opinion at least, doesn't take a lot to bring it from a pretty mundane piece into something that's a little bit more unique and special. And today it's a theme that I visit pretty frequently. So this is by no means a completely out of the blue piece, but I love having elements that I can incorporate throughout my pieces and have them tied together to other ones. But today I just have this gaping neck wound and the smoke coming out that ends up being a little bit more like a galaxy, I guess, with little stars that I add at the very end. But it was fun to think it through. I actually started off with sketching this one, and like all of my Inktober's, I'm sketching these not traditionally, digitally in Photoshop. But I started off with basically this concept, but the smoke was interacting with him in a different way, and ultimately the composition was just really not working for me, and I wasn't really sure what to do, what to fix it. And that was the moment that I realized I just needed to create a new file of it. There we go. So I just created a duplicate of it, and then I deleted all these extra layers that I had tried out different compositions with, and took it straight down back to the portrait itself. And then I just looked at it with fresh eyes and analyzed, okay, how can I incorporate that original smoky concept that I had into a much better composition? And in the first try, I was trying to do a little bit where it was more off kilter, but it wasn't balancing out. So this one, I decided just to simplify it and make it a very symmetrical composition so that it felt really balanced and clean, and overall everything had an equal counterpart on the other side, and it wasn't feeling like there were areas that were left unbalanced. And ultimately, a lot of times that's all I need to do, is I just need to take a step away from it, clear things out that aren't working, and then just reanalyze how to make it work the way that I want it to. So there's one thing that I've noticed that I kind of struggle with as far as transposing it from a sketch into the actual inked version, and that's eyebrows. I love sketching them, and I'm always happy with them in the sketch and the way that the lines lay out. I think that it turns out very interesting, but when it comes to actually inking it from there, it always ends up wrong. I think that that's one of the things that I'm going to need to really practice as far as the technique of how I sketch it and less how to perfectly transpose the lines, because I think that's the thing, is that I've tried carefully following the lines of the sketch, but ultimately I end up connecting them in ways that they aren't in the sketch, and then they just don't have the same energy. So I think that I need to practice paying attention to exactly how I sketch them when I'm sketching, when I know that it doesn't have to be perfect, and then maybe practicing it with a pen itself on a separate sheet of paper, because I really actually feel like that's one of the things that I do, and it's always like, dang, it was not as good as a sketch, and I always want it to be at least as good as a sketch. So that's it's one of those points of mild irritation where it's like, really? But one of the things that I actually love doing with eyebrows is giving them different eyebrows. So most people don't have perfectly symmetrical features, and I love having asymmetrical features in the people that I draw. It looks more realistic for one thing, and it's a lot more fun for me to draw them, and it's a lot more forgiving of errors. So overall, I just love adding that little bit of more realistic way that people's faces are. I do try to make sure that overall they're pretty close to the same size and the same tilt, but I actually do have a lot of fun being able to draw them slightly differently, especially eyes and the ways that they fold and they have different creases around them and different stress marks. I just really enjoy showing the differences in the face. And then I started adding in the little stars with my gel pen, and I really like that step. I think that and outlining his hair against the background really just helped this one pop, especially doing his hair. That's one thing that I struggle with, is that I want to have these areas that are really dark and ink wash, but I still want the line work to stand out. So adding that one little line of white around the line work, separating it from the back area, the darker area that is, really does help the line work become much more visible and to help them pop separately against each other. So I've been really enjoying that. It's for sure something that I would like to do in my watercolors in the future. I have not used that kind of a technique like at all, but I love it. I love it in other artists' work as well. I just think it adds so much sparkle to the final piece and dimension, and it's just a really, really satisfying step. So the one thing that I struggled with in this piece a little bit is I didn't really get the eyes inked exactly the way I wanted from the sketch. So from the sketch, they were a lot more wide open and almost bulging, I guess. They felt like they were staring a little bit more. And in the sketch, they ended up a little bit more downturned, and it just has a little bit more of a sleepy look than I wanted. And it really doesn't take much to take one eye shape and just turn it just a little bit differently. And overall, I am happy with it where it ended up, but I think I was a little bit too tied with the way that it looked in the sketch. And I'm trying to remind myself that the final and the sketch, those are two separate things or two separate pieces. At some point, the original just needs to be the best that the original can be, and not necessarily the closest it can be to the sketch. But I did try to remedy it a little bit. Ultimately, I realized that in the sketch, I had the top eyelid curved upward a little bit more, and in the final, it was a little bit more of a straight line. So I left the bottom edge of the eyelid the same, but then I just bulked it up so that it curved up a little bit more on the top edge of the line for the top eyelid, and it did help a little bit, actually. And also, another issue that I had with it is I felt like his pupils were focused on a more far-off object, so I wanted him to feel like he's looking at you, the viewer, but it looked like he's just a little bit dazed out or staring at something much farther away. So when you're looking at something close up, your pupils are focused more to a point that's closer, so they're looking almost closer to the nose, I guess you could say. But if you're looking at an object that's farther away, they'll start looking more parallel from each other, if that makes sense. And these were a little bit too too far off in the distance as far as where he was focused. So I did try to fix the placement of his pupils as well as the overall iris placement, and ultimately I don't think my efforts really were valuable at all. I don't think it really fixed any of the issues. It just kind of ended up about the same, but I'm okay with it and I'm happy with how it turned out. It's just that's something that I can pay attention to that detail a little bit better and make sure that the sketch and the way that I transpose it is exactly the way I want for that. And that is it for today's Inktober. I do have the original available at my shop. There's a link in the description and in the end card. And I will be compiling all of my Inktober's into one book. And it will be life size, which I'm extremely excited about. So it'll be 8x10. And that will be launched through Kickstarter within about a week. And I'll let you guys know more information on that when it gets closer and when everything gets finalized. But for now, I will let you guys go. I do post daily Inktober videos, so I will see you guys tomorrow for my next one. Thanks for watching.